around the time my wife cheated. We had been married for around 15 years. We met in college, got married, and started having kids a few years later. I never thought anything was wrong, which I am sure some people roll their eyes at, but I mean, things seemed fine. We got up in the morning together, had breakfast with the family, and then went about our day until coming home in the evening. Then we had dinner and spent some time together as a family. Our intimacy hadn't changed at all. Sure, it was nowhere near the level when we first got married, but it still was pretty good for a couple who had been married as long as we had. I think if my wife had shown some signs, it would have been a lot easier to digest, but she didn't. Even after all these years, I still can't see any signs. Maybe she had put up a mask for me that was so good I was unable to see through it. The only reason I even realized something was going on was because of my kids. They happened to see mommy kissing her friend while I was at work one day. All of the kids were under the age of 10, so it was really difficult for them to see it. When I got home, they innocently asked me what was going on. I can't tell you how hard it was to keep up a facade for my kids, but I did. My response was to smile at them and tell them I'd talk with their mother that night. I did just that. My wife was taken aback. She said the kids were mistaken and she was just giving her friend from work a hug. He had dropped something off for her, is what she claimed. It's crazy how genuine my wife sounded. I almost wanted to believe her, but I knew my kids wouldn't make something like that up. Plus, it wasn't easy to confuse a kiss with a hug. However, I let my wife think that I believed her and decided to go old school. I hired a PI to find her. We had the money, so I figured it was a good way to make use of it to get proof. Within 2 weeks, I had my evidence and presented it to my wife. She didn't have much to say. All she did was cry and cry, going on about how the coworker she was seeing was her soulmate. It wasn't planned, of course, it just happened. At that moment, I knew my marriage was over. There was just no way I could stay in a marriage with a woman who cheated on me, called my kids liars, and tried to make it out as if they were the bad ones. If I hadn't hired a PI, she probably never would have even told me the truth. I had to start the divorce process. She did beg me to stay, but eventually slinked off to go be with her AP. We had an amicable divorce and custody agreement. It was split custody, but the older the kids got, the less they wanted to go over. They understood what their mother did once they were old enough. Never did I say anything to them about it or talk bad about their mother because, in the end, she was their mother after all. When they did get older, I tried my best to answer their questions to the best of my ability. It got to the point where my kids didn't even want to spend time with their mother anymore. She did take me to court, but by this point, they were of age where they could choose if they wanted to go over or not. They didn't, so the judge said it was out of her hands. If my kids wanted to stay with me full-time and not visit their mother, then so be it. My ex was not happy with this and blasted me over social media, as one does, but I ignored it because it was beneath me to pay any attention to it. By this point, my ex had remarried to her AP and had a kid with him. This was probably another reason why our kids didn't want to go over there anymore. It felt to them like they were being replaced. At least, this was what I suspected to be the case. Up until our kids turned 18. My ex tried her best to get them to come see her, but it was to no avail. Once they went away to college, she couldn't use any more legal means to try to force them to see her, even though it didn't work anyway because the judge wouldn't force it. The years passed. My kids graduated college, got married, and had kids of their own. I was thrilled to become a grandfather for the first time. It truly is different from being a parent and gives you a great opportunity to spoil them rotten. At some point, my wife stopped trying to get into contact with our kids but started up again after her husband died. She only had one kid now with the deceased husband, but they weren't planning on having kids anytime soon. Her only chance at having grandkids was to be around the ones we shared. However, our kids still wanted nothing to do with her. I don't know if my ex-wife wanted to brag about it on social media or wanted a relationship with her grandkids because she genuinely wanted it. Whatever the reason, my kids didn't want to spend time with her or have her see their children. This was their right. She kept trying, even going so far as to constantly message them on social media and try to see if they would rekindle a relationship with her. If she had left things well enough alone and at least apologized, which she never did, I might add, it might have worked in her favor. But my ex was never great at thinking that far ahead, so she's missed out on a lot of special moments with our grandkids. I remarried myself a few years ago, and my second wife has become more of a grandmother to my grandkids than their biological grandmother ever has been. They barely even know of her existence. She's now quite lonely because after news of her affair came out, my ex lost a lot of her friends and even some of her family members. They turned against her because they didn't like what my ex had done to me. We never had any issues with each other and still reached out to me now and then. I wasn't as close to them as I once was, but we continued to talk to each other a few times a year. While I have a rich family life, my ex is now a bitter and lonely widow from what I have heard. Even her child with her deceased husband isn't very close to her. They have distanced themselves from my ex for some reason. I didn't care to know why, but I could come up with a few reasons why they would do that. Had my wife not stepped outside our marriage, she wouldn't be facing her golden years alone and with no kids or grandkids to share it with. I didn't have an ounce of pity for her because she made her bed, and she was going to have to continue to lay in it until she took her last breath. When you hear about cheating spouses, you rarely get a glimpse into how it can have an impact on their life even decades later. This is a perfect example of this. Your wife truly did have it all: a great spouse, kids, family, and friends. She threw it all away because she believed she had found her soulmate. There were so many other ways she could have done it, but instead, she chose to take the easy way out and cheat on you. Amazingly, she was willing to go so far as to blame the kids and brand them as liars. Based on this alone, it's no wonder that your kids want nothing more to do with your ex. The same goes for allowing their children to be around her as well. She could have tried to make amends in some way, but it seems like your ex just kept digging her heels in. Continue to enjoy your life with your new wife, kids, and grandkids. Let your ex continue to be a bitter, angry person. Now, let's move on to the second story. I was married to my ex-wife for 10 years. The two of us got married straight out of high school. People warned us against it, telling us it was way too soon and we should just wait, finish college first, start a career, and then see where we were at. Was what they wanted us to do. Me being a fool in love meant that I didn't care what any of them had to say. We had been dating since sophomore year of high school, so I thought I knew everything and found my forever person. My wife at the time seemed to be on the same page, so we got married and went to the same college. The two of us lived in married coupled housing, which was helpful for us. Even though we were busy with college, I felt that our marriage was at its strongest in college. After we graduated, we got our apartment and jobs in our chosen fields. Things from there still seemed great. Slowly, we were building our future. The people who had been against us in the beginning and warned us against marriage were wrong. They had since come to support us. Her family was like my second family, so after marrying her, I did gain a lot more family members. It was about 1.5 years before our 10th anniversary when I noticed something was going on with my wife. She was more distant and didn't want me to ever touch her. I attributed it to me working a lot lately and just being very busy. I decided to make it up to her by planning a romantic night. She ended up not coming home that night and used the excuse that she was staying with a friend. Like I said, I had no reason not to believe or trust her, so I assumed she was telling the truth. The closer we got to our 10th anniversary, the more it continued. My wife was even more indifferent to me than ever and was hardly home. It was at this point I realized the chances of her having an affair were high, so I used one of those Apple AirTags. I was ashamed to use it, but I had to find out. Instead of going to a friend's house like she said, she was across town in the opposite direction. I drove there and waited for her to come out. She did come out arm in arm with some heavily tattooed and pierced guy. Compared to my straight-laced self who always played by the rules, it was quite a shock. I took a video and quietly drove home. When she got home, I didn't say anything and just played the video for her. After the shock wore off, she started yelling at me for planting an AirTag in her car and following her. It was creepy, apparently. The logic she was spewing was just very hard to follow. I just waited until she quieted and asked why. My wife claimed she needed someone more exciting and not as boring as I was. Working hard to provide a good life for us wasn't what she wanted. I pointed out that by working so much, I was able to help us afford our nice house, car, etc., but my wife just told me she wanted more. If what she wanted was something more, then I was fine with that. True to her word, my wife wanted out as quickly as possible. With me being the breadwinner, she could have gotten a lot of money and spousal support out of me. However, she seemed more focused on the ink being dry on the divorce papers than anything else. She wanted so badly to be with her precious AP, who was her true soulmate. I was just a stop along the way to finding him. Her words, and not mine. If that's what she wanted, then fine. The agreement ended up with me getting the house, dog, and more than half the money in the joint account. I was shocked that all she wanted was the car to be paid off completely and no alimony. I guess my ex wanted a complete break from me, which was why she agreed to such a clean split. Did it hurt? Yeah, of course, it did. But if that was how she wanted it, then so be it. It was probably better for me as well to get a clean break. From the day our divorce was final, I had no contact with her because I saw no reason why I should continue to have her in my life. However, we did have mutual friends, and I still kept in contact with some of her family members, so I was still privy to certain things that were going on in her life. The AP, or the new love of her life, was gone within 1 year of the divorce. He dumped her for someone else, which sent her into a tailspin since she had been staying at his place. It left her with no place to go. My ex couldn't go back to her parents because they had disowned her pretty much and still talk to me to this day. Last I heard, my ex-wife had been living in a small apartment with her sister and the new love of her life. She's working 2 jobs to make ends meet and is in debt. Had she pushed for more during our divorce, then she would have had more money as well as alimony to fall back on. I mean, I wasn't complaining, but if she had been thinking with her head instead of her heart, she would have been better off. To make it weirder, her new boyfriend has the same name as me. I'm not sure how to feel about that, so I choose not to think of it very often or at all. It just seems a little taboo to date someone with the same name as your ex. Like, you wouldn't date someone that had the same or similar name of a family member. So why with the same name as your ex-husband? It just didn't make sense to me. But when it came to my ex, there were a lot of things I didn't understand and would probably never understand either. She was my past anyway, so I didn't need to worry myself sick. When it comes to my ex-wife, it's been a few years since our divorce, and while my ex's life has been a downward spiral, mine has been great. I got remarried about 3 years ago, and the two of us are currently having our first child. Trusting another woman was difficult for me, so it took me a while to even think about dating again. My now wife was very patient, however, and was willing to wait for me as long as she needed eventually. I felt ready to date again, and it led to a second marriage. I have even reached a new level of success. My wife and I managed to sell the old house I had with my ex, buying a bigger one, and even have savings to spare. Both of us had lucrative careers, though my wife planned to go on maternity leave once the baby was born. If my ex knew about my new life, then she has yet to reach out to me. I doubt she ever will, which suits me fine. There is no need for her to ever speak again, but sometimes I do wonder if she regrets having an affair and hurrying through a divorce so she could be with her AP. Chances are my ex regrets it, but what comes around goes around. For my ex, truer words had never been spoken. Opus, I love my reaction. The same you use at the end of your post because it is so true. What comes around will go around. It might seem like the person who hurt you has it all and will never face consequences for their actions, but they will one day. It might be a subtle consequence, or, in the case of your ex-wife, the consequences are big and have a lasting impact on their financial future. It's so great that she didn't try to push you for alimony or strap you for cash after your divorce. I have heard that this happens to a lot of divorced men, so I'm glad she was naive about it for your financial sake. Congratulations to you and your new wife, as well as your unborn baby. This gives others hope that there are other fish in the sea and happiness can be found again. It's not very easy, but it is possible. I had just gotten out of a long-term relationship when I, a 34-year-old male, met my wife, who was 35. It hadn't been a traumatic breakup. The two of us were just growing apart and wanted different things out of life. So, we decided it was better to break up. A few months after that breakup, I bumped into a woman who introduced herself as Katie. We just started talking in a coffee shop and hit it off. When we exchanged numbers, I did warn her that I had just gotten out of a serious relationship, which meant I wasn't ready for anything serious or anything at all. She waited until I was ready, which was pretty amazing for me. I thought that a woman willing to wait for me must have interested me, right? It ended up not being the case, but at the time, it truly did seem like I found someone good for me. We took it slow, and within a year and a half, the two of us were moving in together. After another 6 months, I proposed, and we were planning a wedding. The wedding went off without a hitch. The two of us were financially stable at the time of our wedding. I had a decent job, and so did my wife. While we might not have been as rich as the 1%, the two of us could be considered middle class, at the very least. Our relationship was also good. We had our ups and downs, but the two of us truly did seem to be creating a great life together. For the first 3 years, everything seemed great until my wife started working on a particular project at work that was difficult. Or this was what I thought at the time. She was working long hours and just spending a lot of time out of the house. I missed her, and when I understood that she was busy at work, when I had an important project at work, she supported me. I kept asking when she would be finished, but my wife kept extending the deadline. This has been going on for nearly 6 months now. It made no sense why she would still be spending all these late nights at work. It got to the point where I couldn't deny that something wasn't right there. So, I went onto her laptop that she had brought home from work. Her home laptop didn't have anything. I already checked. This meant the evidence had to be there. I didn't know what evidence I was looking for, but I knew there had to be something on her laptop that would explain to me what was going on. On her laptop, I found several emails from an email account I didn't even know she had. On this email were dozens of emails that were shared between this unknown man. They were all of a romantic or sexual nature, which only confirms the truth that I was afraid to admit to myself. She was cheating on me. When she came back home from picking up dinner for us, I had the laptop out in the open with the emails right there, so she could see that I knew everything. My wife didn't say anything at first. She looked like she was in shock. So, I took the chance to ask her who was the guy she was cheating with. My wife screamed, saying I had no right to go into her work laptop because that contained confidential information. I almost wanted to laugh because she had been the one to use her work laptop to talk with this guy. So, I asked again, He was a former client of the office that she had continued speaking to even after the contract ended. One thing led to another, and they started sleeping together. I asked if she had feelings for him. She said yes. My wife said she was going to eventually tell me that she wanted a divorce so she could move on and be with this man. Once I did a little digging, I discovered this man was very rich. When I say rich, I mean filthy stinking rich. She always loved the finer things in life but seemed like she wanted to work towards it. I couldn't understand the shift in her personality. Maybe it had always been there, and I was so blinded by my love for her that I just wasn't able to see it. Whatever the reason, I knew this marriage was over. My wife fought it for a bit, but I think she was only doing this because she felt like it was what she had to do. The divorce seemed to take a long time to come to fruition, but in reality, it was just a matter of months. She went one way and I went another. A divorce never was on my radar, yet here I was newly divorced and alone. My ex-wife already had someone in mind. She posted on social media that she was with a new man and they were engaged to be married. The truth of it was that her so-called fiancé was already married. He told her he was a widow but his wife wasn't dead. Rather, she was just in another country taking care of an ailing family member. When she returned, everything hit the fan, so to speak. My ex-wife's engagement was called off, but this was a moot point given that her AP was already married. They couldn't get married anyway. After that, her social media posts seemed to become quite erratic. She was posting about how she had lost her soulmate. But what I think she was upset losing was her wealthy AP. It was all about the money. This guy was going to help her get to that lifestyle much faster. Meanwhile, after my divorce, I reconnected with the girl from the past whom I had originally cut things off with just before meeting Katie. The two of us were friends for a while before we realized that we were finally in a place where we could give this a second try. She knew about my divorce and was sympathetic. When word got back to my ex that I was back with this particular woman, she went ballistic and started blasting me all over social media. She spent so much time blasting me and her AP over all her social media that her job started to become in jeopardy from what I heard. My wife was put on probation at her place of work. They were a public company, so things she could post could be used against them in some way. I just chose to shut down my social media for the time being because reading her posts was doing nothing but causing stress for me. As far as I know, she has been moved to another department and isn't making as much money as she once was. This is all on my ex. If she had just been happy for what she had, then all of that could have been prevented. My current girlfriend and I are talking about marriage but are trying to take it very slow right now. The last thing I want to do is run into anything without being completely sure. Don't want to make the same mistake twice. Opus, it's almost poetic to think that you ended up in a relationship with the girlfriend you were with all those years ago. It's a shame that you had to go through your ex cheating on you followed by divorce to get back to her. No one should have to go through that. Your ex truly is a piece of work. She's lucky that she didn't lose her job completely for having a relationship with a former client and using her work computer, no less. In my opinion, they should have fired her the second they found out about it. However, again, this is just my opinion. It's almost laughable that her relationship with the affair partner turned out the way it did. What did she expect from someone willing to sleep with a married woman? I imagine most people with any sense aren't going to be surprised he was lying the entire time, just like your ex was. Good on you for moving on and taking it slow with your new girlfriend. It seems like the two of you have something special. Of course, things could change, but this is the point of taking it slow, to make sure no mistakes are made, as you mentioned at the end of your post. Now for our next story. I, a 49-year-old male. Story 2. Met my wife, a 49-year-old female, when we were in our mid-22nd. We were friends for a while before we decided to date. The two of us dated for around a year, which isn't that long in the grand scheme of things, but at the time, it seemed like we had been dating long enough. She mentioned us getting married, and I said I wanted to wait a little longer. Within a few months, I finally was ready to propose to my then-girlfriend. She accepted, and the two of us started planning a wedding. It was around this point I should have recognized the red flags, but I didn't. Why? Well, I was in love. See, my fiancé wanted a huge wedding. While I understand it was a special experience, I didn't see the point of spending a couple grand on what was essentially one day. I ended up convincing her to have a small, intimate ceremony. She seemed all right with it at the time, but I think as the months and years went by, she almost started to resent me for talking her into that. The thing is, we couldn't have afforded such a wedding at the time. I suggested that one day we could have the wedding of her dreams if we decided to renew our vows. This seemed to please her, but again, I felt like this resentment was always there, just lingering beneath the surface. Was I the most romantic guy in the world? No, but I tried hard to keep the romance alive by doing little things for her over the years. And it wasn't like my wife didn't know this. When we got married, we also didn't have kids, so there wasn't that pressure hanging over us. The years passed, and by the time we were in our 42nds, we had been married for almost 2 decades. Things had gotten stale jail for the past year or so, which led me to plan a romantic night out. I even asked my sister for help because, like I said, I wasn't very romantic. It ended up not going anywhere. My wife never came home that night. And when she did, she said that she had stayed at a friend's house. They had been drinking, so she figured it was safer for her to just spend the night there. I saw no reason to not believe her, so I took her at her word. The next night, I tried again, and we had a pleasant dinner. When I tried to initiate intimacy, she brushed me off, saying she was too tired. Again, I didn't think too much of it. We both worked a lot, which was why we were finally able to afford the lifestyle we were currently living. This trend continued, and it got to the point where I had to ask myself if I was going to continue to believe her stupid lies, which were lies. I reached out to her friends to see if she was there, but they covered for her. I shouldn't have been surprised. The only way I could think was to directly confront her about her lies and ask her if she was cheating. To my surprise, she admitted everything the night I confronted her. I think I was in shock that she just straight up told me that she was cheating. Honestly, I don't know what I was expecting. I thought she might try to deny it and tell me that I was wrong, but she didn't do any of that. So, I asked who it was and how long it had been going on. He was a family member of one of her friends she met one day. It was an instant attraction, and he was so romantic. There it was, the one thing that I could never manage to do. I did try, but my wife didn't think that I was trying hard enough. This guy was everything I wasn't and more. She claimed our marriage ended that night. And what began was the divorce process. It wasn't a bitter divorce. We agreed to split everything down the middle. The house would be sold, and we each take half. This seemed like the best option for us to get away from each other quickly. Once everything was final, I bought a condo with the money we split from the joint account. I still had a decent amount left over that I was going to keep for a nest egg. Eventually, the house sold, and I put that money away as well. You never knew when you were going to need it. My ex ended up doing the exact opposite. She took her money and bought an even bigger house than the one we lived in together. Then I heard that she was planning a wedding. A very huge wedding, I might add. It was the wedding she had always wanted. I was having flashbacks to the wedding we had all those years ago. My ex had resented me for all these years because we never had the wedding she truly wanted. As embarrassing as it is to admit, I did look at the pictures on Facebook afterward, and my God, it was a huge affair. Everything looked so expensive. I can just imagine how much money she spent on the whole thing, including the dress. At that point, I knew I had to take a step back and stop obsessing over this woman who was my ex. I focused on spending time with my friends and family, which helped. I assumed my ex was spending time with her new affair partner. Turns out, though, not everything was great. I learned that a year after they got married, they were in debt. My ex spent the divorce settlement on the expensive house and expensive wedding, making it so she had nothing left. Her job did bring in a decent amount of income. My ex was the only one making good money in that household because the affair partner was a bum. She dared to reach out to me to see if I could lend her some money. My ex played on our past relationship and the memories we made over 2 decades, but I wasn't buying it. I told her that it wasn't my problem that she spent all of her divorce settlement on pointless crap. I hung up on her and proceeded to receive at least 3 more calls from her that night, along with 3 very nasty voicemails. After I listened to them, I just laughed and played them to my friends to show how far she had fallen. They all found them as funny as I did. My ex truly had no shame or was just that desperate. I don't know if she ever truly believed that I would give her the money or not. Even if she had reached out to me a few months prior, I still wouldn't have given it to her. At no point was I ever that desperate. I blocked her number that night because I didn't want to hear another word from her. We were done. She cheated and wanted to go be with her affair partner, who was the new love of her life. If she had planned better, then my ex would have money just like I still did. Most of my family and friends were happy to see her go. I wonder if they had ever liked her or just tried to get along with her for my sake. It didn't matter anymore, though, because my ex was a part of my past, and that was where she was going to stay. Opus, you made the right decision all those years ago not to have an expensive wedding. It's only one day out of your entire life. It's not to say that you can't make it special, but rent a wedding dress, don't get a hugely expensive venue, and make it a nice and small intimate affair. The one thing I'll give your ex is that she did own up to it right away. It doesn't change the fact that she never should have cheated on you in the first place, but at least she didn't continue to lie even when the evidence was right there. It's quite ironic that your ex was finally able to plan the wedding of her dreams, but it ended up being what was truly her downfall. She probably realizes now that it was a bad choice to waste all that money, not only on a huge house she probably didn't need, but a huge wedding. To think she reached out to you for money means she must have been desperate. Good on you for shutting it down and leaving her to deal with the consequences. She made her bed of debt, and now she is going to have to lie in it with her bum of a husband. I, 35, male, and my wife, 34, female, met each other in college. It was love at first sight. We were in the same thesis group during our senior year. We went to a large school, and we didn't have the same major, so we didn't cross paths until then. We were both from 2 different states, but we loved the city our school was in, so we planned on staying there after graduation. We didn't want to live together right after college because we worried that it would put a lot of pressure on our relationship. We continued dating as normal for a year after graduating and decided that we wanted to live together. I never once doubted our relationship. I knew that she was the only woman for me, and I planned on marrying her. I proposed to her when we were 25, and a lot of our friends from school were surprised by it. A lot of people didn't think we were going to last. Nobody ever explained why, other than the fact that my wife and I were total opposites. I was always very introverted and quiet, and she was outgoing and had a tendency to be loud at times. She was the life of the party in any room, and people gravitated toward her. That was one of the things that I loved the most about her, so I never even thought twice about it. After we got married, we were together for 12 years. We had 3 children together, owned a home, and were planning on retiring in 10 years and moving to a small town in Vermont. Unfortunately, my wife decided to throw all of that away. My wife was a marketing executive, and she had a pretty lavish job. She traveled a lot and managed a lot of overseas clients for her firm. I always thought that we had a strong foundation for our marriage, so I never worried about her when she went abroad on business. I knew that she went sightseeing and had friends in different countries, but I never suspected that she would be cheating on me. When she left, I never suspected anything until I found a pregnancy test in her bathroom while she was away. After our 3rd child, we decided we didn't want any more kids. We went over all the options, and the least expensive and least invasive way to prevent pregnancy would be getting a vasectomy. So I did. After that, my wife stopped taking birth control, and we didn't have any issues. So when I was cleaning my bathroom and saw a pregnancy test in the trash, it raised some suspicions. In hindsight, she had been displaying signs of morning sickness. But if she needed to take that test, that meant that she was at risk of getting pregnant, and I knew it couldn't have been by me. When I found the test, my wife was abroad. She was on a 6-hour time difference from us, and I knew that she was probably asleep. At least when I talked to her around 4 p.m. my time, that's what she told me she was doing. Out of curiosity, I checked her location on my iPhone to see that she wasn't at her hotel. It looked like she was at a restaurant in the heart of Stockholm. If she wanted to go out to dinner with a friend, she would have told me that, and I wouldn't have had any issue with it. Instead, she lied to me about going to bed. I knew that if she was lying to me, she must have been up to something. I went into her office and logged into her computer. Thankfully for me, she kept her lodging credentials on the inside of her notebook. I searched through everything that I could to find any sign of an affair, and I found it. It seemed like she was sleeping with the client she was on a work trip to see. I looked through emails and saw exchanges of pictures and updates about each other's lives. The message chain that I found dated back 3 years, but it looked like there were even more before then. They were telling each other about their families and plans for the future. A lot of the messages seemed very friendly. Then some were extremely explicit. I did some digging, and I found out who the guy was. I already knew that he was a client, but I didn't know that when my wife studied abroad in college, she met him, and they had stayed in contact ever since. She knew him even before she knew me. It looked like both of them lived their lives with their families and jobs, and whenever they had the chance, they would get together for sex. I spent the entire night looking through the vast history that they shared, trying to piece everything together. I was destroyed by it. I loved my wife more than anything in the world, and she had kept a secret like that for me the entire time I knew her. I didn't know the person I was married to, and I wanted out. There was no way I was going to stay with somebody who would lie the way that my wife had. I contacted a divorce attorney first thing in the morning and sent them all of the documents I'd put together with screenshots from my wife's computer. On top of everything I found, I discovered some interesting business secrets between my wife and her affair partner that I thought her boss might want to be privy to. Mainly, her trips abroad were entirely unnecessary. She was budgeting in fake trips at work and paying with company cards. There were private conversations between her and the other man where they planned dates to get together and came up with viable excuses for work. It was just an added level to how deceitful my wife was. I didn't tell my wife about it when I found everything out. Instead, I waited for her to get home. However, when she texted me before her 13-hour plane ride home, I had a brilliant idea to blow up everything for her while she was blissfully unaware. I reached out to her boss and I sent him everything. He was shocked by the information and told me that he was going to speak to others to see if he could gather more information. Meanwhile, I packed a few bags for myself and the kids and went to stay at my mother's house. We weren't going to be there when my wife returned home. Later that day, I put my kids to bed and eagerly awaited the phone calls from my wife as she realized exactly what was happening to her. Around 1 a.m, I got dozens of text messages and calls from her telling me that we needed to talk. She asked me where I was with the kids, and all I did was respond that I was divorcing her, and the kids were safe with me and their grandmother. She ended up coming over to the house and demanding to see the kids while they were asleep, causing a big scene. I showed her the kids so she knew that they were okay. Then I told her she had to leave. I advised her to get a divorce attorney and to be prepared for whatever her boss had in store for her. She told me that I had no right to go through her personal belongings the way that I did, and she planned on filing a lawsuit against me. I didn't know how something like that would hold up, but I figured I would talk to my divorce attorney about it anyway. From what I understand, something similar happened with her partner abroad. I sent information to his employer about the misuse of company time and funds. I didn't know them, but I followed his wife on social media to see if there were any updates. She did end up leaving him. I divorced my wife, and she tried to put up quite the fight in the courtroom. There weren't any grounds for her to sue me in any way. On top of the divorce, her former employer filed against her for embezzlement of company funds. It looks like she's going to be getting out of that with a hefty fine, but she likely won't have to face jail time. However, the embezzlement suit helped me in the custody hearing. Now I'm living my life happily without her. It hurt a lot at first, and it took a lot of adjusting, but I know now that she wasn't who I thought she was. The woman I married never would have treated me the way that she did. I'm glad that I found out who she really was and left her while I had the chance. Opus, it sounds like your wife was a pathological liar to be able to continue an affair with somebody abroad for as long as she was without ever showing an inkling of the truth. It's scary. She seemed to have mastered the craft of lying. It's good that you contacted her employer about what she was doing because it is illegal to use company funds to buy yourself plane tickets and hotel rooms. She's lucky that she got away with just a slap on the wrist and nothing more. For the affair to have gone on for as long as it did, I would venture to say that she embezzled quite a bit of company money over the years. I'm glad that you are away from her now and realizing that you are better off without her. Now, let's move on to our next story. My wife and I had been married for 8 years, and we had 2 children together. I loved her dearly, and I would have done anything to make her happy, but she ruined our family. We met through a dating app and started seeing each other shortly after matching. We just had so much in common, and we clicked right away, so it only made sense for us to see where the relationship could go. Things got serious when she got pregnant with our first child. I think the news kind of fast-forwarded our relationship. It wasn't something that either of us seemed to be upset about, though. We were excited, and we were in love. My wife gave birth to our beautiful daughter, and we were as happy as could be. We got married after she gave birth to our daughter and settled down in a nice house shortly after that. The order we did things was kind of backward, but it all worked out in the end for us, or at least that's what I thought. The first couple of years of our marriage were rocky. We had only been dating for about 6 months when she got pregnant, so we didn't know each other that well. We weren't even living together at the time. There were a lot of things about our personalities that clashed when we were living in such proximity to each other. I was always a little out there with my personality, extroverted and outgoing. I wanted to do things when I had the chance and experience life. My wife, on the other hand, was very reserved and liked to relax. Sometimes I thought that I was too high energy for her. We got into arguments now and then, but we always settled them amicably and moved on. I thought that communication was a strong suit of ours. If there was an argument where we couldn't settle it right away and either of us was mad, my wife would go to her sister's house and spend the night there. I knew that she would vent and get everything off her chest, and then in the morning she would come back and we would talk. All of those feelings were only exacerbated when she gave birth to her second child. Don't get me wrong. I love my son more than anything, but he was driving both of us crazy as a newborn. He would stay up all night long and cry, and it took hours to get him to fall asleep. Everyone in the house was sleep-deprived and irritable all the time for the first month after bringing him home. Eventually, we figured out a way to soothe him and get everything back to normal. I hate saying this because it sounds like a stereotypical toxic thing to say, but my wife stayed home to take care of the kids, and I worked 70 hours a week. A lot of the times when he was up crying, I was trying to get as much sleep as possible for work. I kind of expected my wife to be the one to take care of him. Months had passed since that was an issue, and I hadn't even realized that it was something that my wife was holding on to. It was a grudge that she had with me that I didn't even know about that she couldn't let go of. One night, we had gotten into a fight over something trivial, and she brought all of it up. She threw it in my face as if I were a negligent father and a bad partner because I wouldn't take care of our son while he was crying at night. I argued my side, telling her that I had to work and the exhaustion was affecting it. I helped often with our daughter, so I didn't understand why she couldn't see where I was coming from. She was very upset about everything. And eventually, she stormed out, leaving me to take care of both the kids for the night. I did just that and waited for her to come back in the morning to talk about it like we always did. She got back much later than she normally did the following day, which only made my frustration worse because I had to call in sick for work that day because of it. It seemed like she genuinely didn't care about my time and what effect her actions had on me. It was around noon when she got home, and we talked about everything. She was extra apologetic to me. It seems like she didn't want to talk about anything. Rather, she just wanted to concede to whatever it was that I had to say, and put an end to it all. When it was over, she left to go say hi to the kids, and we didn't bring it up again. Over the next couple of months, she was acting a lot different. There was a spring in her step that I couldn't quite figure out what happened to get it. She would visit her sister, usually once or twice a week before, but during that time, she was going every other date. It seemed odd at the time. Looking back, I know exactly why she was going over there. Sometimes she would bring the kids, sometimes she would ask me to watch them and go by herself. I found out the truth of what was happening when I saw her sneak out of bed one night to take a call. I guess she forgot to put her phone on silent before going to bed that night because her ringer woke me up. She answered it before I could say anything to ask what was happening. And she whispered for the person on the other end to hang on before she snuck away from me. Right away, I clocked what was happening as strange. It was weird for her to be getting a call in the middle of the night, first of all. Then, on top of that, for her to answer it and sneak off was also weird. I stayed still and pretended not to notice, and I waited for her to leave. After a minute, I tiptoed out of the room to see what was happening. I heard noises coming from the laundry room and pressed my ear to the door to try and hear what it was. I could hear somebody on speakerphone telling my wife to do things to herself, and my wife clearly enjoying them. She had snuck off to have phone sex with someone. I listened for a couple of minutes while it continued. The person on the other end was whispering and trying to be quiet, which told me that they were both doing something they shouldn't have been. I contemplated bursting through the door to confront them, but I decided I wanted to play it a different way. So I went back to the bedroom and pretended to go to sleep. She didn't come back for about half an hour. I stayed up waiting until I could hear her snoring next to me, and I got out of bed, taking her phone with me into the kitchen. I looked at her most recent call and saw that it was a familiar name. It was her sister's boyfriend. Her sister, her best friend in the world, had been dating her boyfriend for 5 years, and she was head over heels in love with him. Her sister dated a lot of losers, and she thought that her boyfriend was the one for her. She wanted to marry him and start a family with him. As shocked as I was that my wife was cheating on me, the fact that she was cheating on me with her sister's boyfriend made it so much worse. I just couldn't believe it. I looked through the text messages and saw both of them planning times to get together when her sister wouldn't be home and sending each other pictures and videos. I was already extremely upset about the cheating and the lying, but then I saw times when my wife told him that she had to bring the kids along with her. I was furious, and I wanted to ruin everything for her. I took as many screenshots and saved as many videos as I could and sent all of them to myself. I went back to the bedroom and put her phone back, then went to the living room to sleep for the night. I couldn't stand to be around her. I called out of work the following day and went to a coffee shop where I searched online for a divorce attorney. I found one and set up a meeting with them as soon as possible to end my marriage. On top of that, I wanted to tell her sister about everything before my wife had a chance to go in and make it seem like I was lying. I drove to the restaurant where her sister worked and waited for her shift to end. When I saw her in the parking lot, I got her attention and asked her if we could talk. She seemed confused and also a little nervous, but she joined me in my car. I told her everything I knew. I showed her what I thought she could stomach from the videos and screenshots that I had. She was heartbroken by it all. Her sister was supposed to be the person she could trust most in the world, but instead, she broke that trust. She was hysterical. After she recovered, I asked her what she wanted to do, and she immediately told me that she was kicking her boyfriend out of the house. She got angry very quickly as she started talking about it. I hadn't realized, but he didn't have a job, and he wasn't paying rent with her. He was basically a broke, talentless SoundCloud rapper. I ended up driving her to her house and staying there with her while she broke up with her boyfriend, kicking him out of the house and throwing his things out of the window. Her boyfriend seemed like he wanted to beat me up, but he didn't try. If he did, I would have probably sent him to the hospital. When all of that was done, she and I drove back to my house where we both confronted my wife. My wife tried to defend herself and say that the videos that I had were deep fakes and that I was just trying to sabotage her. Why that was something I wanted to do, I didn't know. She didn't have a leg to stand on in her arguments. I told her that I wanted her to get out of the house, and I was going to be divorcing her. She started crying about how she didn't have anywhere else to go, and she was begging for forgiveness. She told my sister that it just happened one day when she was mad at me. She tried to blame it all on the boyfriend by saying he saw how vulnerable she was, and he swooped in to try and seduce her. He was sleazy enough to try something like that, but that didn't mean that my wife had to agree to it. If he kissed her, she could have pushed him away and then told me and her sister. She didn't do that. Instead, she slept with him and then carried on an affair that lasted several months. Now I have divorced my wife, and I have full custody of the kids. The deciding factor in that was how she brought them along to have an affair. The judge didn't like the sound of that. Her sister has cut her off completely. They don't have any contact with each other. And from what her sister has told me, a lot of their family has ended communication with my wife as well. I still see her sister regularly because she is the aunt to my children. She loves them, and I didn't think it would be fair to cut her out of their lives. Ultimately, I'm glad that I found out about my wife's true nature. Looking back at our relationship, it didn't seem like we were meant to be together, and we're finally both out of the relationship. I wish it could have ended differently, but I think everything happens for a reason. And unfortunately, the journey here was a little rockier than I would have liked. Opus, I can't imagine finding out that your wife is cheating on you the way that you did. It must have been incredibly difficult to go back to bed after you heard what you did and pretend like nothing happened. I think your wife's behavior was truly abhorrent. Cheating is already awful, but cheating with your sister's partner is terrible, especially when she knew her sister's history with men and how much she loved the guy that she was with. It might be easy to assume that this wasn't the first time he cheated in the relationship, but it would have been the most hurtful way for him to cheat. I think that the excuse that your wife gave was pathetic. She couldn't take responsibility for her actions, and I think that just further shows how immature she was. I caught my husband cheating with our son's fiancée a few days ago. It hurts to even write it. It still doesn't feel real to me. I don't understand how they could do this, knowing the devastation it would cause to the entire family. My son had been in a relationship with his girlfriend for 3 years. I thought she was a wonderful match for him, and they got along very well. She is 24 years old, while my son is 26. He is our only child. I am 45 years old, and my husband is 49. Our relationship was like any other couple's, with its share of ups and downs, but nothing too serious. We didn't have an extremely active sex life, but it wasn't completely lacking either. We had sex at least once a week. When my son proposed to his girlfriend, I was thrilled for him. They were looking forward to planning their wedding and starting a family one day. I left work early on a whim, which was quite unusual for me. When I arrived home, I noticed that my husband's work truck was in the driveway. As I approached the front door, I heard faint music playing from inside the house. Normally, I would have just called out to ask who was home and request them to lower the music. However, as I traced the source of the music, I made a shocking and unfortunate discovery. I found my husband with my son's fiancée in a compromising situation. It felt like I was having an out-of-body experience, and I was so stunned that I couldn't even speak. They didn't notice me at first, but when they did, they panicked. She tried to cover herself, while my husband didn't know how to react and didn't even attempt to cover himself. In a daze, I turned around and left the house. I must have been in a state of shock because I don't even remember how I managed to get back in my car and drive to the nearest CVS. I couldn't bring myself to stick around and demand an explanation. In situations like this, no one can predict how they'll react. Like most people, I thought I would be really angry and lose control. Instead, it felt like I was watching everything from outside my own body. I guess everything happens for a reason. I had never left work in the middle of the day before. If I hadn't caught them, I would still be living a lie. It's hard to believe that this will be my last memory of him. I told my son about what I saw, and he confronted his fiancée. I don't want to describe the details of what I witnessed to him. It's extremely difficult to talk about, to say the least. It won't bring any good. Luckily, my son broke up with this girl immediately. He doesn't want to come back to our house and says he'll never talk to his father again. We've been married for 27 years, and I thought we had a strong relationship. I had no clue that anything was going on, and neither did my son. There were no obvious signs of attraction between my husband and this girl when we were all together. My husband's behavior didn't change, and he was always where he was supposed to be at home. I didn't notice anything because they were meeting in our house during the day when no one was supposed to be there. He doesn't have an explanation for why he did this and hurt his wife and son. He's unable to justify his actions. He says it was just a sexual affair, and they have no desire to be together. Is this a midlife crisis? He's 49 years old, and she's 24. I informed her parents about the situation, and they are rightfully disgusted. I've also told all my family and in-laws. Everyone is advising me to get a divorce, except for his mother. She hopes I can find a way to forgive him. I understand that the right thing to do is to get a divorce, but it's still painful to let go of our shared history. It all seems like a lie now. He's gone. I asked him to leave last night. He went to a cousin's house about 40 minutes away. He's called me several times since then, but I'm not ready to talk to him. 2 of my cousins came over last night, and it was comforting to have a girls' night in with them. It was very last minute, but I'm grateful that they dropped everything to be with me. My son is fueled by pure anger right now. He's blocked his ex-girlfriend in every way possible. He's personally informed our family, as well as his closest friends. Several kids he's known since preschool are fully supporting him. His friends have reached out to check on me, and even their parents, whom I'm not particularly close with, have called to offer their support. I'm overwhelmed by all the support we're receiving. As for his grandmother, my son isn't upset with her. He understands that she's an 83-year-old woman who doesn't want to see the family break apart. Honestly, she's a kind woman but tends to avoid conflicts. I will be consulting with a lawyer this week. There's no way to get through this without losing my son. I don't want to discover more than I already have. I firmly decided to get a divorce, and learning about the full extent of this affair and any other affairs from the past won't benefit me. I want to express my gratitude to everyone for their words of encouragement and support. I can't begin to explain how much it means to me. My husband has tried calling my son, but my son refuses to talk to him. My son did send him a text saying that he's dead to him and never wants to hear from his father again. When I told my son that I'm filing for divorce, he became emotional and said, "I can't imagine having to lose both my parents." That hit me harder than catching my husband cheating. Fortunately, it was over the phone. I would have completely broken down if it had been in person. My son has always been a strong young man, not wanting to show weakness. Hearing that he thought he might lose me, his mother, shattered my heart. He's my only child, and he means more to me than anything in this world. I'm here for him, and I'm not going anywhere. My son's two closest friends have been staying at his apartment since this all happened. They don't want to leave him alone. I wish I had more kids, but these two friends have been like brothers to him for 21 years now. A coworker recommended a lawyer she used when divorcing her cheating husband. When I told the lawyer what had happened, her jaw literally dropped. She's committed to doing everything she can to ensure that I come out on top in the divorce. I've always been financially independent, maintain my own savings, and have a healthy retirement account, so I'm not worried about my financial future. What's painful is having to let go of this house I've called home for the last 20 years. I thought it would be my forever home. Even if I end up with the house and the divorce, I can't imagine staying here. I'm utterly exhausted. It doesn't feel real to me, and the thought that I might wake up from a nightmare is what gets me through each day. My husband keeps leaving voicemails and sending texts, saying he wants to talk, but I'm not ready for that yet. I can't thank all of you enough, even though I keep repeating it. I hear what you're all saying, but part of me really wants to know why he did this. I have so many questions. How did it start? When did it start? How long has it been going on? How could he justify doing this to our son? Did he really think they would never get caught? Did he not think about the devastation it would cause? How could he violate our home in this way? I hope you won't think I'm crazy for wanting answers. I told my son that I plan to ask questions. And if there's anything in particular he'd like to know, he said he doesn't care to know about it, and nothing either of them could say would change what's happened. He's not upset that I want answers, but he also doesn't want me to share what I find out. I'm going to text my husband so I have written proof in case I need it for the divorce. I understand what everyone is saying, but I still need answers for my own peace of mind. His ability to answer my questions won't impact my decision to divorce. I emailed him a few questions, and he responded within an hour without making excuses for himself. He said there's no explanation for hurting his family to this extent, and he admitted he wasn't thinking at all. He never thought they would get caught, and he didn't think it would last as long as it did. He claimed it was just a physical relationship with no emotional involvement. He also mentioned that he's not seeing her anymore, but that doesn't really matter. He's aware that he's lost us. He said this started last July when both my son and I were away for a weekend. She called him in the afternoon, saying she wanted to use our pool. He mentioned that she showed up after dark with a bottle of wine. They drank the wine, went for a nighttime swim, and had an intimate encounter in the pool. She stayed the night, and they were intimate several more times before she left the next day. They would meet for intimate encounters 2 or 3 times a week during their lunch hours. They both worked near each other, and he would pick her up and bring her back to our house. He claims that he never initiated contact with her. She was always the one making plans. There were also several occasions when they called in sick from work and spent the day in motel rooms. I caught them in the act, so I have to live with that distressing image for the rest of my life. I'm not putting too much trust in his story. I'm sure there's some truth to it, but I expected him to present himself as helpless in the situation. Learning about the extent of their intimacy felt like a painful reminder of the day I found out. I had no inkling that anything was going on. No suspicions at all. It's challenging, but I make sure to eat every day. I'm able to sleep at night, and I spend a lot of time with family and friends. I don't want to be alone. I'm also trying to stay focused at work. I check in on my son every day, but he has his own life, and I don't want to overwhelm him. I know he's eating, spending time with his friends, and exercising a lot. I've encouraged him to talk to me about anything that's bothering him, but he mentioned that it feels strange to discuss some of it with his mother, which I understand. I offered to pay for counseling if he wants to talk to a professional, but he's not ready for that just yet. It's particularly tough for my son because he developed a strong bond with my husband through exercise, and now exercise serves as a way for him to cope with his emotions. They accomplished an Ironman triathlon together, ran 2 marathons together, and regularly went to the gym as a team. I don't plan to ask many more questions, if any at all. I understand that I'll never get the complete truth, and I wish I could erase the image of them together from my mind. When I told her mother about the situation, she was left speechless and seemed unwilling to accept it. I haven't heard from her since I told her, and I have no desire to speak to her mother or anyone from her family again. My son's ex-fiance's parents don't have a healthy marriage. It's evident that her husband doesn't hold much respect for her, and she has put herself in a situation where she relies on him for financial support. I'm sure all of this has influenced my son's ex-fiancée and her outlook on life at the moment. I'm not ready for counseling or any type of therapy. It's all still too fresh for me to open up to a complete stranger in real life about this disaster. I'm focusing on work and spending time with family and friends because it serves as a distraction. I'm aware that it might not be the healthiest way to avoid truly processing and dealing with the affair, but it's what I need right now to get through each day. I really want to ask if my husband has cheated in the past just to confirm whether my entire marriage was a lie. Deep down, I already know the answer, but I want to hear it from him. As I've mentioned, when I'm ready, I'll look into counseling. Thank you for the recommendation. Last night, I asked him if he had ever cheated on me in the past, and he admitted that he had cheated with 3 different women during our marriage, in addition to our son's ex-fiancée. His infidelity began shortly after our wedding when he started an affair with a coworker, which lasted for 5 years until she moved away. He had a 3-year affair with a woman he met at the gym and a 2-night stand with another woman he met during the San Diego Marathon, which he attended alone. So yes, my entire marriage was built on a lie. I did my best to be a good wife and create a home where he felt wanted. I still find it hard to believe that I was deceived throughout our entire marriage. However, I can't bring myself to hate him entirely because he gave me my wonderful son. I'm aware that this is likely just the tip of the iceberg, and there may have been more women involved than he's admitting to. But in the end, discovering more won't change anything. I hope all of this was worth it to him. I will continue to be the best mother I can be and work on rebuilding my life as best I can. I'm fortunate to have a strong support system. I wish I could understand how someone could engage in these actions. What did I do to deserve this? I fear I'll never stop asking myself that question. I hope that my son will be able to trust someone in the future and find himself in a healthy relationship. Thank you to everyone for their ongoing support. I'm taking things one day at a time and hope to finalize the divorce as soon as possible. It appears to be proceeding smoothly, and he's not resisting it at all. My son is doing well. He's focusing on his work and exercise to cope with everything. He's curious about what I saw when I caught them, but I don't want to share those details. I believe it won't help his healing process. He mentioned that he'd consider seeing a counselor if I do, so I'm looking into it. I may not feel fully ready, but I'll start so that he's comfortable speaking to someone as well. Although I have many questions for my husband, I'll refrain from asking them. My marriage is not what I believed it to be, and I need to grieve its end and move forward. I'm not entirely sure how I'm managing it. I'm just taking it one day at a time. I'm worried that if I try to discuss it in a factual and clinical manner, my son might want more details. Also, I don't even want to speak about it out loud, as describing the intimate aspects is embarrassing for me. He hasn't spoken to his ex-fiancée, so there's no chance she could claim there's a misunderstanding. What I saw is undeniable. Thank you to everyone. I've decided that it might be easier for me to put it into words and email it to my son. I'll let him know I need some time, but he will eventually get the details. He completely understands that this is a difficult process, but he insists he can handle it and doesn't want me to shield him from potential pain. He believes that he needs to know to move on without lingering questions. I no longer feel a range of emotions. It's just a constant feeling of sadness. I'm sad that my entire marriage was built on a lie. And I'm saddened that my son has to go through this devastating experience at a young age. Strangely, I even find myself feeling sorry for my soon-to-be ex-husband. He's made a mess of things. I can't comprehend how he can look at himself in the mirror. Thank you to everyone for your thoughts and words of encouragement. I've been quite occupied with family visiting for the holidays and preparing for Thanksgiving, which is tomorrow. For the time being, I've pushed these thoughts aside. My son is off from work this week, and he's spending a lot of time helping me around the house and catching up with our family. He'll also be spending time with his younger cousins who look up to him. All I can do is try to enjoy and focus on the positive things and people in my life. Ruminating on the mess they created won't achieve anything. We're both grateful to be surrounded by supportive family and friends during the holiday. I needed a break from my family. I even pretended to have a headache just to get a few minutes to myself. I know they mean well, but the concerned looks and hesitations are starting to bother me. I can't handle the pity. Tomorrow will be better. I'm going shopping with several female relatives. These ladies will be charging through Macy's, and I'm sure they'll forget to worry about me for a while. He texted me last night to wish us a happy Thanksgiving. And even though I didn't reply, it managed to cast a shadow on the night and lingered in my thoughts today. I chose not to share this with anyone because I didn't want to spoil our shopping trip. I eventually texted him back, stating that the only communication we should have is through our lawyers, and I have no interest in hearing from him otherwise. He didn't respond to my message. I'm doing my best to cope with this situation, and I believe I will be all right. However, I'm feeling sad and a bit apprehensive about the idea of being alone for the rest of my life. I didn't expect to start over at my age. Looking back in retrospect, I can't recall any instances of inappropriate or questionable behavior between my husband and my son's ex-fiancée. I never observed any flirting, touching, or anything that would suggest they were involved with each other. My husband always seemed devoted to our family. I'm truly baffled by how someone can lead such a deceptive double life. It's very disturbing. I understand that I'll never fully comprehend how their affair began or why they allowed it to continue. I simply have to cut my losses and move forward. Regarding the reader comment, you have a valid point. He's staying at their home because I asked him to leave. I'm not sure if the cousin and his wife know about the situation, and it's a complicated and delicate matter. His behavior is indeed concerning, and I can only hope he'll find his way and establish healthier boundaries in the future. After that passionate response on your behalf, what would I do? I would suggest to her, the wife of your husband's cousin, that your husband's behavior is utterly disrespectful and completely unacceptable, especially since they've allowed him to live in their home. It's way beyond what's tolerable, unless his cousin is also his best friend, in which case she might want to consider her husband's role in this situation. He should be told to find his own place to live, even if it means in a less comfortable environment. Alternatively, he could live with the woman he was involved with at the gym. What an insensitive individual. As for the original poster, I didn't inquire about why your husband is still at their place or if they plan to ask him to leave. Frankly, it's not my concern, and I'm no longer involved in this situation. If you wish to continue your friendship with her, you may need to establish clear boundaries. It's evident that there was no ill intent on her part, and she's equally disgusted and shocked by your husband's ongoing behavior. I know she feels deep sympathy for your son. Your husband's actions are despicable, to say the least. It seems he's not using his brain. Instead, his impulses guide him. I'm glad to hear that your son is doing well and even received a promotion at work. It's unclear what he's experiencing internally, but he seems to be showing his usual self. He's planning to start counseling after the holidays. He shared a version of his past infidelities, but it's highly unlikely to be a complete and accurate account. He probably engaged with many more women during our marriage than he's admitting to. I'm afraid to even contemplate the actual number. Fortunately, both you and your son had clean STD tests. It's a good idea for both of you to get tested again in a few months to be sure. I'm beginning to realize that he might also be a narcissist. I used to think his interest in fitness was primarily about maintaining his health, but now I suspect he's more concerned with looking good. I was completely shocked when I witnessed them, and I couldn't say or process anything in the moment. I don't even recall how I managed to leave the house and drive away. I still haven't gone back into the room where I caught them, and I didn't allow any of my visiting family members to enter that room. It's difficult to stop thinking about the incident, but I will explore under therapy, as many people have suggested. They probably have no idea about the pain they've caused. They seem completely selfish and focused on their own pleasure. Thankfully, they weren't in our bed, which provides some small comfort. I don't feel as alone, knowing that others have been through very similar situations. As for your question, I'd like to know how others dealt with their husbands doing this in their homes as well. It's truly perplexing to understand how someone could engage in such behavior at home, especially with a child present. How long did it take for them to feel comfortable being at home again? Regarding the reader comment, I can only imagine how traumatic that must have been for you. It's a painful memory that must be difficult to forget. In a melancholic sense, ending my first marriage was a more straightforward process. There was no need for overthinking, persistent doubts, or difficult decisions. It was a definite conclusion. It was finished, and the divorce proceeded swiftly without lengthy discussions. It was a clean break. No questions asked. Now, in my second marriage, attempting reconciliation is challenging. It's painful, causing hurt, and it has left me in a state of confusion. For years, in contrast, a complete and definitive ending would be much simpler. I know I couldn't endure living with the betrayal. I've remained in this marriage because I lacked concrete proof of the affair. But deep down, there's no doubt in my mind. It's an entirely different and more complex situation that I'm dealing with now. Reader comment, I called my wayward husband to check if he had finished work. When he answered, his phone was on, but I strangely didn't say anything. It took a full minute to realize that his phone had accidentally answered itself in his pocket. and I found myself unintentionally eavesdropping on him being intimate with someone else. I agree, it was like an out-of-body experience. I was in the car at the time and drove to his workplace. I stood outside, knowing they were inside. When I finally knocked on the door and he answered, I was at a loss for words. I simply said, "You cheating bastard," turned, and left. At that point, he had no idea what was happening. Original poster. Similarly, he was in a state of panic with an erection. I will never forget that image. Isn't it remarkable how we can sense that something is wrong in the moment but don't react as we typically would? I came home and heard music playing, but I didn't vocalize anything. I just went to the source. Normally, I would have called out and asked who was at home and requested the music volume to be lowered. Reader comment. I didn't catch them in the act, but I did discover a video of them engaged in intimate acts. In reality, it should be referred to as acts because it consisted of 5 different scenes edited into a 13-minute video that my wayward wife had hidden on a CD in her bureau dresser. When I saw it, I felt so disgusted that I vomited. I confronted my WW, and she initially denied any wrongdoing until I mentioned that I had a copy of the video. None of the intimate scenes were filmed in our house. The explicit content left no room for minimizing the situation. Each scene concluded with an orgasm for the other man or my WW, making any attempts at minimizing completely irrelevant. Original poster. I'm truly sorry for the experiences you've been through. There's truly nothing a wayward spouse can say once they've been caught in such a way. No one can truly grasp the horror and the irreversibility of discovering a WS in the act. Apologies become meaningless. It's quite pathetic that a WS and their affair partner would even attempt to downplay the situation in that moment. It appears that most of you had suspicions that something was amiss and followed your instincts to investigate. I, on the other hand, had no inkling that anything was going on. I stumbled upon the truth by accident, and I was completely unaware of the state of my marriage. I really can't comprehend why a wayward spouse would say, "It's not what you think," or "I can explain." It's precisely what we think because we've witnessed it firsthand, and there's no plausible explanation for their actions. I'm sorry for everyone who had to catch their WS in the act, but I'm glad to hear that you were able to cope with it successfully through therapy and counseling. I'm left wondering how many other women he may have brought into our home. The thought is truly terrifying. Am I the only one who believes that adults shouldn't have Facebook? It initially began as a platform for college students and perhaps should have remained that way. I don't have a profile, and I fail to see the appeal of it. I keep in touch with the people who truly matter to me through phone calls and emails, especially if they're too far away for regular in-person visits. All I ever seem to hear about is how Facebook causes relationship problems. As part of the divorce, I will be receiving the house, and I'm seriously contemplating selling it. I can't bring myself to enter the room where I caught them, and I don't feel comfortable being in this house alone. It's just me now, and I don't really need this house. It would make more sense for me to downsize to a condo and start fresh. I always thought this house would remain in our family, but it's just another dream that has been shattered. I'm 35, male, married to my high school sweetheart, Caroline, 32. She was my junior, and she was always interested in me. After a while, I fell for her too. We dated all the way through college. Everybody looked at our relationship as some sort of miracle. All of our friends said that they had never seen long-distance relationships work. But we did it. Not that it was a piece of cake, but because both of us really wanted our relationship to work. We were so much in love with each other that we were ready to do anything to make it work. After I established my career and she was almost done with her college, I proposed to her. It was pointless to wait any longer, as both of us knew we would not be able to live without each other. We were eager to spend the rest of our lives together. Things changed a lot, though. Things were going well between us like a normal married couple. There was a honeymoon phase where we could not keep our hands off of each other. Both of us made each other the center of our universe. After a few years of marriage, the honeymoon phase faded, of course. However, both of us were still very happy. We lived our days together in love. We made sure to arrange small surprises for each other that kept the romance in our relationship alive. It was not something that was forced. It was effortless and natural. To get into that story, let me tell you about the background of it. I completed my studies in business education. After that, I was ready to handle my dad's business, as I was the only son. He did not impose his business on me. I have always had an immense interest in business. I had visited my dad's office very excitedly when I was a child. I loved to watch him deal with people. He worked really hard, and I observed him very deeply. I knew since my childhood that this was what I was meant to do. When I grew up, so when I completed college, I was ready to pursue business very passionately. I was very determined, and I had to work really hard. My dad was always by my side to correct my mistakes and help me out. I did make mistakes in the beginning, as they are crucial for success, but eventually, I began to run the business really well, and I was getting recognized and praised a lot. After our marriage, Caroline stopped working. She worked at a firm, but she quit her job a few months into the marriage. I did not want that for her, as I am the kind of person who is very supportive of careers. I wanted my wife to do whatever she liked and excel at it. I was very supportive of it and was always there to encourage her. Caroline, however, did not want that. She gave me the reason that she just wanted to stay at home and be a housewife. I asked her the reason for it that made her make this decision. She said that she just wanted a break from work and enjoyed being at home, cooking food, and doing the things that she loved. I highlighted the fact that such long breaks set your career back, and you find it hard when you return. But it was what Caroline really wanted. Therefore, I had to respect my wife's decision and support her in her choice. I earned a handsome amount of money, so it was not like she was contributing to the house. Whatever she earned, it was hers, as it should have been. I always believed that a man has to provide for his family, and I was happy to do so. However, when she made the decision to quit her job, she lied to me. She said that she was just taking a break for a while, but I heard her talking to her mom on a call. She didn't know I had woken up. She told her mom that she had quit her job forever and that she didn't want to work when she had the option of sitting at home and enjoying what her husband earned for her. It really hurt me. I was hurt not because she wanted to not work, but because she had lied to me about the reason for this whole thing. I wondered why she was uncomfortable sharing the truth with me. I would never have judged her or asked her to not quit her job. I loved her and supported and respected all her choices, yet she thought she had to hide it from me. That day, a part of me really broke a little as I realized that my wife did not trust me completely or was not comfortable enough with me even after all these years. I did not confront her at all, as I did not want her to feel like I was eavesdropping on her conversation with her mother. I just pretended like nothing had happened, and we continued living our lives. After that, I became really conscious about my actions and my behavior. I wanted to make sure that I was not giving any impression in some way that she couldn't trust me. I tried my best to give her a safe, secure, and comfortable space around me. I was good to her. As Caroline had quit her job, she really was making an exceptional housewife. She kept herself busy at home. She made nice dinners for both of us. I loved her cooking and baking. I loved how she was always trying new dishes and new sorts of cakes, and she was really good at it. She was also quite invested in home settings and decor. She was always keeping all our furniture up to trend and kept making new settings. There is no doubt in admitting that she was exceptional at it. I know people whose wives stay at home, but they neither cook that well nor keep the house good. Caroline had good taste. She was good with colors and settings. She seemed very happy and at peace like that, so I was happy for her. I was glad that she was not stressing about work-related things and was living her life as she had wanted. However, somewhere in my head, I still wonder why she had lied to me. Should I read this to be any red flag? Now for the first update. Thank you for your comments. Yeah, I kept trying my best to be good to her. A few months later, a small conflict arose among us when we got to talk about starting a family and having children. It had been 3 years into our marriage, and everything was just great. I just felt like I was missing the presence of my children, and so I decided to discuss this with Caroline. Her reaction was not what I expected at all. She really flipped out, as if I had demanded something without considering what she thought about it. I stayed calm and made her realize that I was not demanding it from her. Of course, I was just trying to discuss it with her as it was something that I wanted and had been thinking about. She got really mad at me and shouted and went into the room, slamming the door behind her. I was completely shocked at the reaction. It was just so abnormal. I was obviously never going to force her for anything that she did not want. It was her body, and it was up to her if she wanted it or not, and I would never force her for something like that. I just found it weird that she was not being reasonable about it at all. How hard was it to talk about it and have a proper conversation instead of barging off and slamming doors behind her? I was mad at her too. After that, I did not know our relationship had become the kind where we could not communicate with each other without her getting mad at me. I decided that this time I would not talk to her or make up for her until she realized her mistake. I was expecting her to come to me after she had cooled down, but that did not happen. I fell asleep in the living room waiting for her to come out of the room and talk it out, but that did not happen either. I woke up in the morning to see that she was in the kitchen making breakfast for us. I went into the kitchen and stood for a few minutes hoping that she would talk, but that did not happen. She pretended as if I was not even present. I wanted to talk to her, but it infuriated me even more, so I also stopped talking to her. I thought if it doesn't matter to her, why should I care either? I went to my office and worked as usual. I was hoping for Caroline to text something, but she did not, and I was disappointed. I went home in the evening, as is my daily routine, and I found out that Caroline was not home. It was weird, as she never went out at that time of the day or without telling me about it. I found it weird, but I went to the kitchen hoping I might see a note there, but nothing. I checked my phone again for texts or voicemails, but nothing. I called her, but she did not pick up the call. I also realized that she had not prepared anything for lunch or dinner, which was also something that rarely happened. I waited for her to get home, and meanwhile, I made dinner for us. By that point, I was not really mad at her, and I thought I would make up and explain to her what I meant yesterday. I made pasta for us, as Caroline loved it. After I made the pasta, I checked my phone again to see if there was any update. She still hadn't returned any of my calls or texts. I began to get worried because it was not normal, and I feared that she was in some sort of trouble. I made some phone calls to her friends, but she was not with any of them. I began to get really worried. All sorts of weird scenarios began to circle my head. I was too scared. I kept calling her, but she wasn't answering. As I was about to leave the house to go to the police or something, Caroline turned up at the door. I almost cried out of joy and hugged her and then scolded her for where she had been. She acted very casually, as if I was overreacting. We sat down and had dinner. She smiled as she realized that I had pasta for us. She apologized for her behavior, and I also clarified to her that I was just trying to discuss it with her. I was obviously not forcing her to have a baby. I would never do that until both of us were ready to become parents. We made up, and then I told her that I had been worried sick about where she had been when she didn't come home for so long. Caroline said that she had gone to visit her friend Sarah, as Sarah had invited her over. She didn't tell me because she was mad at me. She was unable to pick up my calls because it was silent. After that, we talked a little more, and then I went to sleep. Caroline fell asleep almost immediately, but I could not. The events of the day kept revolving in my head. I could not understand what the uncomfortable feeling was, but I was not feeling all right. Something was just totally off. I felt like Caroline was turning into a stranger. She did some things that were completely out of my understanding. It was not how she usually behaved with me. The way she was so casual about being absent and not informing me felt very wrong. It was not the person I married, who was so considerate and loving and never tried to put anyone under unnecessary stress or tension. Also, she had always been very communicative with me. We never hid things from each other. We were very vocal about how we felt, and we always acknowledged and respected each other. It was the secret behind staying in love with each other for so long through so many different phases of life. And now I felt like that was vanishing. Caroline was backing away from communication and respecting my feelings. They made me wonder if our relationship was falling apart. Now for the second update. Sorry for the late update. I know I almost took a year to update, but trust me, I really got caught up in a lot of mess, and it took me all this while to clear it up. Here's what happened next. 2 days later, I was at the store buying some things. I was going home and had stopped to get Caroline's favorite chocolate. It was something I was trying to rejuvenate our love. I was at the counter when I ran into Sarah. She said hi to me and asked how Caroline was doing. I said she would know if she just met her the previous day. Sarah seemed confused and said that she hadn't met Caroline since last month, and I was more confused. I said that I must have missed her, and then I was driving home. I knew I was probably seeing the end of my marriage. I could not tolerate lies from Caroline. Where was she, and why on earth did she lie to me? I went home and gave her the chocolates I had bought for her. She was overjoyed. We had the usual conversation and laughed. I was faking it all. My mind was stuck with who was Caroline with the previous day. As Caroline went to sleep that night, I snuck out as I could just not stop myself. I took her phone and opened it. I checked her calls and texts. I was surprised to see that she had called my best friend, Simon, 35, very frequently and almost every day. It was very fishy and abnormal. Simon was my childhood friend. He was the son of my dad's best friend. Simon and I had grown up together. We had spent all the stages of life with each other. We went to school and college together, and we took over our father's businesses at the same time. Simon, however, was not as hardworking as I was. He was interested in partying and not doing anything. He never really had an interest in business either and was actually forced by his father to take over. His father did not give him a choice to do something else. Simon was good friends with Caroline, of course, as she had been with me for so long. I liked the fact that they got along well when we started dating because I had seen people with difficulties when their friends and their partners did not get along well. I always wanted my partner to get along with my best friend, and I was very happy when I got that. During the high school and college times, we hung out together and enjoyed a lot. I am glad that I had the two people who were closest to my heart in all steps of my life, my lover and my best friend. The next day, I went to meet Simon. I was just curious. I was obviously not going to ask him about those calls, but I just wanted to see if I caught on to something from meeting him. I went to his office, and as usual, he was out. He was running his business very poorly because of his immense carelessness and unprofessional behavior. I called him, and he asked me to wait for a few minutes as he was almost there. He met me in the same cheerful greeting manner that he always did. He asked if I would like to eat or drink anything, and I asked him for coffee. We talked about a lot of things. And when I was about to leave, he asked me about Caroline and how she was doing. He remarked that he hadn't talked to her in ages and must invite us over for dinner. I smiled and said that we would love that as a reunion. As I got out of his office, I knew Caroline was cheating on me with this guy. I didn't even need to have proof because I knew that already. It was just something that I could see in his ugly eyes. It was right there. But of course, I needed some proof to go about it the right way. I went home and spent the rest of the day with Caroline. When Caroline went to take a shower, I took her phone and installed a tracker on her phone. That app allowed me to access her phone and see all her texts and calls and every activity on her phone. I was ready to get some filthy evidence and divorce her. The next morning, the first thing I did was call my lawyer. I discussed the matter with him in detail. I told him that I did not want to share anything with her after the divorce. She did not deserve a single penny. The lawyer said that if the evidence was solid enough, it was possible that she would not make money out of the divorce. I was going to make sure that was going to happen. I kept a check on Caroline's phone. And yes, I got the proof almost immediately. There was an exchange of texts between Caroline and Simon. Their conversation was disgusting. It made me sick to the core. Caroline was saying that she would file for divorce in a few weeks and that whatever she would get out of the divorce, she would share with Simon, and they would get married soon. Apparently, she was actually in love with Simon, and that was more painful for me. I took the screenshots and was relieved that I had gotten the much-needed evidence to solidify my case. I then texted them to my lawyer, and he said that things were looking really great for me. He immediately filed for divorce and filed a case against Caroline. I didn't go home that day. I had decided that I was only going to see her in the court. I was not going to talk to her or even let her say a single word to me. I could not tolerate her filthy existence around me. I took an apartment on rent as I knew that it would take me a while before the case ended, and I could not be around her. She was sent the divorce notice, and I am sure she was really shocked. She sent me billions of texts asking what it was and where I was, but I was not going to answer. She was going to be ruined in so many ways. The court process began, and I had to go to the court regarding it. Everything was in my favor as I had proof for everything. The proceedings carried on for a few months, but they ended in my favor. During those months, she kept trying to reconcile or apologize, but I pretended like she did not exist. I did not even allow myself to feel the pain that I was going through. Caroline got almost nothing out of the divorce because her intentions were crystal clear to everyone. She had been with me for my money and had been cheating on me with my best friend. My best friend was after my money and success too, and he wanted to get it through my wife. I never talked to Simon again. He never came to me either. He must have known that I would punch him in the face if he ever talked to me again. Simon did not marry Caroline as expected. He only wanted to get the money out of her, but that never happened. When Simon's father got to know about his reality through my dad, he despised him. He was already very ashamed of his loser son because he was depreciating his dad's business every day while I was able to scale my dad's to the next level. The trauma of being betrayed by your wife and your best friend is not easy. I had lost two of the closest people to me who had been with me for so long. Life began to look very hard and ugly, and I was depressed. Thankfully, my parents were there for me through all of this. They stood by me in all the times. My mom convinced me to take therapy and deal with things in the right way. I never wanted to take therapy, but I did it, and I was glad that my mom had forced me to take this step. It enabled me to heal and handle my grief in a better way. I didn't have to stay in the heap of hopelessness and depression. I met Simon a few months later, and I was very depressed in those days. I could not stop myself from lashing out at him. I almost punched him, but I was stopped by the people in the office. Later, I found out that Simon's business was going to be lost. He had lost a lot and had gone through a lot of problems only because of his carelessness and incapability. I threw myself into the business once again as it made me forget everything that had gone wrong in my life. I got better as time makes you forget a lot of things. I had moved on from the extreme pain that was thrown at me. I am proud of who I am and where I stand today despite going through so much in life. The fact that I am able to write down my pain so effortlessly indicates that I have moved on.